If you want to get more views on your YouTube videos, one of the most effective things you can do is to improve your YouTube thumbnails. And if you can improve your YouTube thumbnails, then you're going to get more views and subscribers. So in this live stream, or if you're watching a replay, we're going to be talking about the best practices for creating YouTube thumbnails. So we're going to look at the top 10 best practices. We're going to look at some examples of some of the channels that are getting a lot of that changed their thumbnails and are now seeing improvement in their growth. And we'll also look at the YouTube analytics and look at some of the things, some of the analytics to do with improving your thumbnails. So the great thing about the YouTube thumbnail is that, if you can get a good thumbnail going, then, that starts off the journey of the viewer. So they see the thumbnail, that kind of stops them in their tracks. Then they read the title, and then they go forward and watch the video. But, if they don't click on the thumbnail, then they're not going to watch your video. And if they don't watch your video, you're not going to get views, you're not going to get subscribers. So because it's one of the most important factors in the growth of a YouTube channel, I thought we'd cover that today and look at some examples from different channels, and then also look at some of the analytics. So my name is Herman Drost. My channel is all about how to grow your audience on YouTube so you can generate traffic, leads, and sales on autopilot. And because YouTube is one of the second largest search engine and Google is the first largest search engine, then people asking questions and searching for information have an opportunity to find your videos in YouTube and Google. And if you get a lot of videos that rank on the first page of YouTube, then you can get that traffic, those leads, those sales coming in 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, year after year. So that's been my experience over the last few years, and that's why YouTube is a great platform, but you do have to follow the rules. So I want to welcome everybody here. We've got Apple Hacker, we've got Clifford, good to see you, Clifford. We've got John, who's, I guess that's afternoon, and Dylan. So, so we're going to look at some of the best practices, and probably you've been looking at your own thumbnails and look, what are the ways that you can improve them. So, so I'm going to go over to screen share now and kind of go through some slides of some of the best practices, some examples, etc. So if you've got questions, you can put them in the chat. Probably I'll answer them as we go along, or toward the end of the presentation. So we're going to hop over to the screen share now. So bear with me. So so this is all about YouTube best practices, YouTube thumbnail best practices, and just to kind of outline some of the YouTube stats that are pretty amazing. 1 billion hours of videos are watched every day on YouTube. 400 hours of video uploaded to YouTube every minute. And this has a lot to do with thumbnails because 70% of YouTube watch time is generated from mobile devices. So if your thumbnail can't be seen at a small size, then nobody's going to click on it while they're walking with their phone or just have their phone out. So that's the reason you really want to make sure that your thumbnail looks good on small devices, on a desktop, on iPad, etc. So how can you make your thumbnail stand out from your competitors? So so here's an example of your thumbnail being shown on the suggested videos. So this is actually on the YouTube watch page. So you can see how small it is. And, even if you look at these thumbnails, like this third one, doesn't really give you an inspiration to check it out. But top one here, How to Get More Views on YouTube by Brian Dean, is that's kind of his main colors for his channel. So that one does pretty well. But so the same size appears also on mobile devices. So therefore you have to make your thumbnail stand out from your competitors. And just to give you some idea of how my thumbnails have changed, 5 years ago, this was like, one of my thumbnails. And, you can see that even though the background is a bit kind of attractive, but I think I just grabbed an image from my YouTube video, like a screenshot, and then so it's not very clear, it's not saturated, it doesn't stand out very well. But I checked at some of the click-through rates on my channel, and this was like a recent, well, not so recent, probably about a year ago, but this one currently gets 11.8% click-through rate, which is pretty good, because the standard click-through rate of general thumbnails is between 2 and 10%. So if you're getting over 10%, that's really good. And this video continues to attract views and subscribers. So because you have a thumbnail that stops people in their tracks, they read the title, watch the video, and then you get the views. So that's just an example of how things change. And later on in the live stream, we'll look at some examples of other channels that have changed their thumbnails, and their views and their subscribers to the channel has skyrocketed. So they're doing even a much better job than myself. So I just kind of pointed out some of the 10 best practices, but there's a lot of other practices. But here's some of the main ones. Take a high quality photo with your camera or with your iPhone camera, and you want it to be you want to make the size of the thumbnail 1920 by 1080 pixels. So you want to have a high resolution thumbnail, and it has to be under 2 megabytes in size. Otherwise, YouTube won't allow you to upload that particular thumbnail. Use faces and expressions. So vidIQ did a study recently on thumbnails that said that 2 faces are better than 1. That's why I thought, well, let's try the 2 faces in my thumbnail for this live stream. So so if you can put 2 faces in a thumbnail, maybe you can test that one out. Tell a story. You want to your thumbnail should tell a story, or at least tease a story about what's coming up in your videos. So if you can tell a story in your thumbnail that teases a little bit of the content of your video, of what's in your video, then people can be kind of curious as to want to check out the video. So and that way, you can use different expressions, etc. So then use contrasting colors. So you want to we'll touch a bit on that later, but using 2 or 3 colors in your video thumbnail. You want to use bold colors, and colors that complement each other, and make them really stand out. And then using bold text, you just want to use you just want to use oh, something changed here. Hope you can still see this. Using bold text with a few words. So essentially, the bold text should be like a large font, and you don't want to use too many different fonts, but just use like 2 or 3 words, a couple of different fonts, a couple of different font colors. So, and we'll look at later like some thumbnails that don't even use any text in the thumbnails. So you might want to even test, not using text at all. And then trying to keep it simple, avoid cluttering up your thumbnail with putting a whole bunch of stuff in the thumbnail. So you want to try to keep it simple, uncluttered. So when people view it on a small screen, then they can figure out, what it really says. Avoid the timestamp. The timestamp, YouTube's timestamp, appears at the bottom right of the thumbnail. So if you put some text down there, then it's going to be covered up by the timestamp. So kind of avoid putting that there, and then make sure it's viewable on mobile devices. So check how it looks on your phone. You might, when you're in your graphic software, you can kind of reduce it down to like a very small size and just see how it looks there. And then the last thing is, and I'll mention a few other tips later, but essentially you want to split test your thumbnails, because sometimes you think, wow, this looks so great, this is a great design. So maybe it's maybe I'll just stick with this based upon my feelings. But the data doesn't lie. So if you can split test the thumbnail and get some data back from it, then it'll show you quickly, which thumbnails actually working the best. So I highly recommend split testing your thumbnails. So let's look at some examples. So here's an example of a channel which has like millions of subscribers, and you can see that they're kind of telling a story. They use the contrasting colors, very bright, bold colors. They're using different layers, and they're showing some action in the video, showing some different expressions, and they're not using even hardly any text. So this is a good example of trying to, using all different contrasting colors. And here you can see that it really tells a story. So it's like Daniel arrested by hackers, so showing a story there, and hackers give me a lie detector test. So, it's kind of showing, kind of teasing you as to what you're going to get in the video content when you click on the video. Okay, here's another example of thumbnails without text telling a story. So father-son adventure, every revived skateboard ever made, and so they're showing some different examples using bold colors, not using any text here. Okay, this is a good example of faces. So this is Evan Carmichael's channel, and you can see by actually when I talked to him at a video conference once, then he said that he even tried getting some designers to custom design his thumbnails, and this one with a black background seemed to always outdo the others. So he hasn't changed his thumbnails so much, but you can see that it's very simple. A few words are in the thumbnail, and you can see that they're very clear. Oh, Flannel Guy's saying switch to presentation mode. Can you see my slides? Give me a yes in the comments. Okay, moving on. I assume that you can see it. So here's another example. This is Dan Locke's channel, and he has over, I forget how many subscribers, but he has like millions of subscribers, and you can see the different types of thumbnails. So success gifts here. How does Em Kama get away with using other people's thumbnail? Well, I probably got permission from them. Going back to Carmichael here. Yeah, he might have done a collaboration video like Blakely 10 Rules. You know, he might have done a collaboration or got permission. But with Dan Locke, he must have a special dedicated designer because all his thumbnails tend to be different. But you know, a lot of activity, but they're still clear. And you can see also that he uses emotion on his face, so sad, happy, curious, etc. So in that way, you know, it kind of shows, it kind of attracts you to kind of check out the video. Okay, here's another one for expressions. This is from Vsauce, and it kind of, you know, very well done as far as it comes to expressions. So kind of makes you curious what the video is about, you know, minefield, brain on tech, etc. Power of suggestion, kind of very enticing thumbnails that make you want to check them out. So, and then very simple, you know, just black and then a little bit of color, basically two different colors, and that's all it is. And then for the text, it's only couple of different colors also. So kind of very simple but very effective. Here's one of mine where I used arrows. So there's been a suggestion from vidIQ. They used arrows and they got more clicks. So this video is doing pretty well on my channel. And I haven't tested more thumbnails, but I thought I'd show this one because using arrows and shapes can also help with, and then also, you know, my face, my eyes are looking at the pointed to, you know, kind of looking at the title. So I think, you know, kind of looking at your text on the thumbnail, using arrows can also be effective. Okay, this is vidIQ's channel, and they changed their thumbnails about 1 year ago. So on these thumbnails, you can see they're pretty good thumbnails, but the person in the thumbnail, Rob, is not standing. You know, it's kind of very kind of faded and doesn't stand out very well. So one of their staff, I think I forget his name, but he kind of works a lot on thumbnails. So they kind of put a lot of work into their thumbnails. And so 1 year ago, there were like 182,000 subscribers. and then they changed their thumbnails to a different design, and today they have 366,000 subscribers. So that's in 1 year, they went from 147 to 366,000 subscribers. So it's probably not totally due to their thumbnails, but according to Rob, who does a lot of their videos, this was one of the big changes. They changed their thumbnails. So here it's kind of very simple. Here's a face, but a lot of them are not using a face and using different shapes, etc. And as a result, they're getting a lot of views. So it just makes sense that you might want to go back to your old videos that are getting a lot of traffic and changing up the thumbnails, and that might add a lot of views to your channel. Okay, this is Brian G. Johnson's channel, and I checked on Social Blade, and you can see that monthly subs and views took off at the beginning of this year. And if you look at his channel, he kind of start changing his thumbnails early this year. So here's like a before, and here's an after. So before it was like, using all this red, and now he's kind of experimenting with, kind of went against the rules, because one of the rules of YouTube is, and that's what most people preach, is really to just stick with consistent colors, same colors. But in his case, he kind of started experimenting with different designs. So for instance, and titles, it looks like too. So like this yellow one, different design. Then YouTube algorithm changes, just 2 weeks ago, it's got 50,000 views. And then recently, some of these new ones here. So the lesson is to experiment. If your thumbnails are not pulling in a high CTR, you might want to experiment with a different design. Hey, how's everybody doing? Let me know in the chat if you know already what your current click-through rate. When you upload usually when you upload a thumbnail, then the click-through rate is going to be higher at the beginning than it is after a few weeks. Because at the beginning, you might get a lot of subscribers clicking on your videos, so then automatically you get a high click-through rate from your subscribers. But as time goes on, then your click-through rate's going to go down and kind of stabilize or decrease, because most going to come from non-subscribers, and the main number of traffic, or a main amount of traffic, is going to come from non-subscribers. So if they see it, if it's in suggested videos or appears on browse features, which is on the home screen or on the subscription feed from people that have subscribed, then, and it continues to get traffic, then, that click-through rate's going to remain stable. So I think my average click-through rate for my channel is around 7%. And I think the average overall is between 2 and 10%. So, but some thumbnails get higher and some get lower. So it's always good to try to improve the click-through rate of your thumbnails. And okay, Flannel Guy has a question here. See if I can bring it over. Can you talk about how the thumbnails can also help to get rankings for Google search? Maybe text on the images helps with that, not sure. Thumbnails can help, don't really help with ranking per se, because the people got to find your video in the search engine. So that's through proper keyword research. So people that are searching for like how to bake a cake, then they put it into YouTube search or Google search and up pops your video. So on YouTube, it'll appear on the first page. And then if you have a great thumbnail that stands out from all the other videos in YouTube search, then people are more inclined to click on that video. So if they click on your thumbnail, they'll watch your video over your competitors. So it's kind of a competition game of trying to be different to your competitors. So that's why it might, you might experiment with different design. And on Google search, it's also based upon searcher's intent. So if they put into Google how to bake a cake, then you have that carousel of videos at the top, or how to tie a tie, you have that carousel of videos at the top. And if your thumbnail stands out from the 3 or 4 thumbnails at the top, then people will be more inclined to click on that. So so your question is, how can thumbnails help to get rankings for Google search? The answer to that is that if you have an attractive thumbnail that stands out from all the other thumbnails, then you're going to win the click. Oh, good to see you, Harley. And success gifts. I think I answered that. How does Mkama get away with using other people's thumbnails and content? Yeah, I think that I answered that with he might have got permission. He might have done a collaboration. There's a couple of different things I can think of where he might have used or got permission from that person. So we're going to continue with the presentation. So I'm going to go back to the screen share. So we just looked at before and after from Brian's channel. And then another factor is the split testing. So this week I did a video on the thumbnail maker, YouTube thumbnail maker, thumbnail blaster, which enables you to split test your thumbnails. But YouTube TubeBuddy also has a split testing feature if you upgrade to the Legend version, and you get a lot more features. But when you split test, and here's a result of a split test, I initially asked people on my Facebook group, which thumbnail do you prefer? This first one, the original thumbnail, and the second one was like a variation. So for me, and also the people on my Facebook group, most of them voted for the original thumbnail. But after running A/B split test, it said test is complete based on the click-through rate. The variation version of your video outperformed your original by 27.71%. So that means more people were clicking on the variation of my thumbnail rather than the original thumbnail. So I'm still running the test probably for another few weeks just to kind of cement the higher click-through rate on my variation thumbnail. But if you want to split test using TubeBuddy, you can use Herman's Buddy, get 20% off. That's an option there. Otherwise, get Thumbnail Blaster. You can check out my latest video uploaded about that on my channel. Okay, here's some thumbnail makers. I was talking about the Thumbnail Blaster, which I did a review of and a demo this week. So you probably had a chance to look at that. But I also use Canva, and that's free, has a bunch of templates, and you can modify the templates. You can save your thumbnail, and it's not just for thumbnails. You can also use it for creating infographics, slides, lead magnets, presentations, etc. So Canva's great, and TubeBuddy also. TubeBuddy and vidIQ both have thumbnail creators that integrate with your YouTube channel. So if you download the free Chrome extension of TubeBuddy or vidIQ, then you can use their thumbnail creator. What about apps for your phone? Some people just use your phone for creating thumbnails. There's one guy that does great thumbnails, uses the Lightroom app, and there's other apps too that you can use. But I also use Pixelmator to cut out my images of myself, and you can also get Photoshop, which is like $29.99 per month. And Harley's saying you can get Photoshop in the photographer package for $10 a month. So I guess that means you got to get, I guess you got to get the whole package. Is that right, Harley? Put that in there. So he's saying you can get Photoshop on the photographer package, $10 a month. I assume using Photoshop. Otherwise, like $29.99 a month. But I use Pixelmator. If you're using a Mac, then Pixelmator is great. Or use one of the apps. You can use. I think Canva has an app. Snapper is another one, and there's other apps that you can also use. Okay. Which thumbnail for the split test was the original again? Okay, let me go back to that. Okay, on the split test, the original thumbnail was the first one, which I thought was great because it shows the subscribe watermark that I actually create in the video. So I thought, wow, I'm showing people how to create a subscribe watermark for their videos. And then the second one, I just put add subscribe watermark with a little arrow, and then put the subscribe watermark there. And apparently after this, probably after, I don't know when I did it, a couple of weeks ago, that the variation outperforms the original. So maybe I'll put that in the YouTube group because I think everybody wanted to know how that went on. But so far, it's the variation is outperforming the original by 27.71%. So, and then it says we recommend updating your video to the variation version. So you just never know. Data, the data never lies. Okay, let's take a look at analytics. So I mentioned this before, but half of all channels and videos on YouTube have an impressions click-through rate. That impressions click-through rate means how many people actually clicked on the thumbnail. And so they see the thumbnail in the search engines, and then they click on it. And so the range is between 2 and 10%. So most of mine are usually within that range. Not many of mine get over 10%, but as I showed you at the beginning of this live stream, one of mine that I showed at the beginning was over 11 point, I think it was 11.8%. Not every instance where a viewer sees a video thumbnail will count as an impression. and not all views come from thumbnail impressions. So if if you promote your videos elsewhere, then may not necessarily see a thumbnail. Might see an image on Instagram or Facebook or website, etc. Older videos may have more impressions since they'll continue to be surfaced to audiences as long as they're on YouTube. So so you might get more, older videos might get more impressions. I have one video that is doing well on my channel and it's got a horrible thumbnail, which you have to change. But so what YouTube's saying here is that an old video that is getting a lot of impressions, maybe people are very adamant about finding out information. So I think I mentioned this last week. Like I got some plantar fasciitis from too much hiking and running, and so I've been resting my heel by swimming and biking instead of running. But when I first got it, I was kind of hungry to look for all kinds of videos about how to heal plantar fasciitis. And I didn't really care about the thumbnail. I just wanted good information. So you might have an old video, as an example, you might have an old video on your channel, and maybe a whole bunch of people might suddenly want to find that information. They see your thumbnail, they don't really care necessarily how the thumbnail looks, but they care, they look at the title and maybe your videos on the front page of YouTube. And so then you get a lot of impressions, a lot of views, a lot of subscribers from that video, even after several years of it being at the bottom of the pile. So in that case, the older video may get a lot of impressions, but it may not necessarily be even due to the thumbnail. Okay, let's go back to my slides. Okay, high click-through rate isn't always a strong indicator of success. Be sure to look holistically at the content and conditions around that video. Look at the average view duration, average percentage viewed, to get a fuller picture of how well the video appeals to the audience. Click-through rates may differ depending on when you look at your video and how you compare it with the average percentage viewed with traffic sources. So basically what YouTube is saying here is to look at different things. So so what you need to look at, instead of just looking at the click-through rate, you kind of like boil or look more deeply at your traffic sources and see where your high click-through rate's coming from. It might be from YouTube search. You might get a high click-through rate from YouTube search. You might get a high click-through rate from suggested. You might get a high click-through rate from browse features. So instead of looking at your overall click-through rate, look at where your different click-through rates are coming from. I looked at that quickly at my traffic sources, and most of my high click-through rates recently have come from YouTube search. So if you want to get a fuller picture of how well your video is doing, you can look at the average percentage viewed and looking at the different sources, traffic sources that give you these click-through rates. Okay, so let's look at the next one. As your videos become more popular, they may get shown to a wider audience and you may get more impressions. Since this audience may extend beyond your core viewers, your click-through rates may be lower, but don't worry, you may still see an increase in overall views and watch time. So as your videos become more popular, they might, if you might see them, other people might share your videos. So say someone, recently I had a comment from someone that they liked my videos, and I said, well, why don't you share it with your friends if you like it so much? And she said, oh yeah, that's a great idea. So I just kind of suggested that to her, and as a result of suggesting sharing the video, then that video got more views. So you just never know the power of suggestion. Just suggesting your videos. So you might your click-through rate might decrease, but your impressions might increase. So so you don't want to just look at click-through rate by itself, but look at other factors that go into it. But usually at the beginning, when you first publish a video, you'll get a high click-through rate because a lot of people that are your subscribers will be clicking on your video, clicking on your thumbnail because it appears in the subscription feed, appears on the home page, it appears in suggested, might appear in YouTube search, so because usually when you publish a video, then it'll get a high ranking for the first week or two, and then it might slowly drop down as you get the famous Google dance, and then before your rankings kind of settle. So in that way you get a high click-through rate, and then it'll start decreasing as your video gets older. So in that way you're it's kind of good to, and this was one thing that somebody pointed out was that when you first publish a video, well, in this example, when they first published a video, they didn't get many views, so they quickly changed the design of the thumbnail to even before they saw the click-through rate. So within the first 48 hours, they changed the thumbnail to try to push up the views. So that's another thing that you could try is if you're not getting many views on your video the first 48 hours, maybe try and change the thumbnail, might change the title, and that might result in more traffic to that video that you just uploaded. Okay, so yeah, you want to study analytics. And another point is the click-through rate's often highest right after upload, as I said. When your most passionate fans and subs might see the video at the top of the home page in subs and feeds. So I just pointed that out. As the number of impressions increases, you'll see lower click-through rate because the audience is shown to is more likely to be less targeted, and this is very normal. Okay, and here's some more thumbnail tips. So if you improve the click-through rate of your thumbnail by 1%, say you got if a thumbnail, one of your videos got a great click-through rate, and you saw a lot of views, a lot of traffic coming to that video, then that'll boost your channel. So I mentioned this before in one of my live streams, that somebody was about to give up on their channel and said, I'm just going to publish one more video and then I'm going to call it quits. And so they published a video, and that video got like 1 million views. And because so many people saw that video, they started watching other videos on the channel, and it lifted all, kind of, well, how's the expression go? Lifting all boats. It lifted all the traffic of all the videos on the channel. And so as a result, the whole channel kind of erupted and got, a ton of traffic. Look at all the traffic sources to determine CTR. So I mentioned that before. Look at browse, look at search, look at suggested to see what kind of click-through rate, where's the highest click-through rate coming from? Is it coming from search? Is it coming from browse? Is it coming from suggested? Ask yourself, why should I click on this thumbnail? So especially if you're your own target audience, then you can ask, would I click on this thumbnail? And then if not, then you want to change the thumbnail. And then keep in mind that it's not just about your thumbnail, because the thumbnail kind of stops people in their tracks. So you definitely want to create a good title that aligns with the thumbnail. So it's not just about, the thumbnail and the title have to work together. So when a viewer sees your thumbnail, it kind of stops them and says, wow, that's an amazing thumbnail. And then they read the title. So the thumbnail is kind of just the first stage of the path of the viewer to kind of stop them, and they read the title and they click on the thumbnail, or they click on the thumbnail right away and then go and watch the videos. So the way I see the thumbnails is that it's like a little ad. It's like little ads on YouTube. And if you get a thumbnail in Google search, that's even better, because your thumbnail stands out from all the other listings on Google. Google now puts them at the top of Google search as a carousel. So that means that visual image of your thumbnail is going to attract more clicks than if you just have like an article that appears below those thumbnails, because people are more inclined to click on the thumbnail than an article. So if you can get your video to appear in YouTube search, Google search, and your thumbnail's there, then you're going to get a lot of traffic. And if you're very lucky, sometime, and I should have shown an example of this, because I have some of my videos that have a huge thumbnail that appears on Google search. So as a result, it blots out all the other thumbnails, and it's just your big thumbnail that's kind of taking up the screen. So that's kind of the nirvana, or the ideal of a thumbnail appear in YouTube search. So a couple of other different tips is to, when you create a thumbnail, especially if you've got your face in there, you want to have, don't just show a small face, but show a close-up of your face, show some expression. Could be really happy, could be sad, could be curious, etc. So show some expression on your faces that kind of aligns with the content of the video. Some people say show your eyes, show the whites of your eyes, or if you can kind of bring up more detail, and then try to saturate the colors. So say for instance, I took a picture of myself, then I'd kind of saturate the colors. So you can do that in a lot of different softwares. You can do it in Canva, you can do it in Snapper and different, Photoshop, etc. And then also you want to think, a lot of people do this, and I do this sometimes myself, but you should think about your thumbnail even before you create your video, before you shoot your videos. So say for instance, like when you're thinking about a video, you can create 2 or 3 different thumbnails, and then when you're ready to publish a video, you have 3 different thumbnails to choose from. So sometimes when you finish shooting your video and editing your video, the thumbnail might be kind of an afterthought. So then you quickly design a thumbnail, put it out there, and leave it. But if you do it before you create your presentation, or before you shoot your video, then you have the thumbnail in mind, and as you shoot your video and as you present your video and edit your video, you always be thinking about your thumbnail. Oh, maybe I can change it to something else. So that way you kind of have that visual imagery of your thumbnail all the while you're in the process of creating creating your video, your video presentation. So just make sure that your thumbnails also has a high resolution. So I would go for a very high resolution when you take your photo, or when you're using a photo for your thumbnail. So the resolution I use my thumbnails is 1920 by 1080, but usual recommendations is like, I think it's 1080 by 720. I think is like the lowest. And try to make your thumbnail kind of tell a story that aligns with your title and your video content. And one other idea is to kind of keep track of your click-through rate. So you might even want to create a spreadsheet of your videos and the click-through rate of your videos. So when you might put your video URL in there, and then next to your next column could be the click-through rate of that thumbnail, and then so after a week or two, you can see if your click-through rate is actually improving. So if you're not tracking the click-through rate of your thumbnails, which is easy to do in a Google spreadsheet, then if it's declining, then you might see a decline in your views. But if it's improving, and if you can improve it by like 1% overall each week, for instance, then that will result in more views. So it's kind of a challenge, but if you find that you're not a very good designer, then I would use templates, templates from Thumbnail Blaster, templates from Canva, or even get somebody professional to create a template that you can follow for your channel. So they can create a template, and then you can kind of create thumbnails based upon that template. So that's just some ideas that you could come up, that you could do. And as I mentioned this before, and I saw this from one channel, somebody that has like millions of views, they change their thumbnail within the first 48 hours if it's not getting any clicks. So that's another idea that you could test, is if you normally get a lot of traffic from your video when you publish it and it's not getting many views, you might change the thumbnail or change the title and see if you can do better. And another idea is to look at your old thumbnails. You might want to resuscitate or revive your old thumbnails. And if you get a lot of traffic on an old video and it has a crappy thumbnail, you might want to think about changing it or split testing it, and then it might suddenly take off because a lot more people are attracted to that particular thumbnail. So that video might double its views, triple its views, 10 times its views. And if more people see that video, then if you link to a playlist and they see more of the videos on your channel, then maybe all of those videos will also get a lot of views based upon that great thumbnail that is getting a lot of traffic for that video. Okay, Apple Hacker saying, what color is good for thumbnails? So some of the dominant, I think VidIQ did some tests because they can see, because they have access to people's channels, and like if you look at Evan Carmichael's thumbnails, I think it depends a lot on what genre your channel is for, but they said black is a good color. So let me see, I'll go back to Evan's. Carmichael's was, where is that? I think here. So here you can see black is a good background color, and he's experimented with a lot of other different colors, designs, and he found that this one still worked well. And then if I go to, where was that one? I think it was Dan Locke's. I don't know which one that was. Oh, it's not that one. Was this one? Oh, here. So Dan Locke, he also uses some black, etc. But I think it might, it's gonna depend on your genre. But I think bold colors, contrasting colors are good. So you might experiment. Also, I've been experimenting with bright green recently. So that's another idea you can try. So which color is good for thumb? The dominant colors would be black. It seems to be the main one, but I don't know what particular genre your channel is, but yeah, just try some different ones. For me, I kind of prefer the blue, but because blue is people like the sky, etc. So, but you might try yellow is also another very popular color, so you could try that as well. Okay, Apple Hacker saying to check out thumbnails. So, well, put your channel. You put your channel on there, Apple Hacker, and maybe you could take a quick look at it. But oh yeah, Harley has a tip here saying when experimenting with colors, don't forget to test in both light and dark YouTube themes. That's a good tip, Harley. So yeah, if you have some people are watching videos with a light theme, and other people are watching with a dark theme. So you could just kind of experiment with that. That's a good idea. Okay, let's see if I can get iApple Hacker here. So let's switch to the presentation mode and let's see. Go to YouTube. Let's have a look here. And iApple Hacker. Let's see if we get it. Okay, we got it here. Let's look at these thumbnails we got here. And for people that are in the chat, then give me feedback on this. So when I first look at your thumbnails, then for me it looks a little bit too busy. What do other people say here? So I kind of like the colors, but to me it looks kind of too busy. And then like I would say instead of having all this text on the phone here, maybe you could do a white screen and just have like text you can actually read. So so it says how to get Minecraft early. I'm not a Minecraft person, but it seems like you need to simplify your thumbnails. So So the text kind of stands out, but for me, it's kind of, yeah, same Harley saying it's kind of busy. I would try to simplify it. So that'll be the one main thing. Just looking here, looks like they're all pretty busy and kind of a bit cluttered for me. Yeah, that'd be my one tip for that one. Text too small. So this is at kind of regular thumbnail size, but it is smaller. Yeah, smaller thumbnail size. You're probably not going to be able to read the text very well. So that's a couple of tips for that. So yeah, try to simplify your thumbnail. Use maybe bolder text, wider text. Your text is bold. You might even try a different font, but maybe try to occupy more, or even try without text altogether is another idea you could try. And Harley's saying also, this is a good tip. Don't need a logo on them. Use color and font selection as branding elements instead. Yeah, so you could even get rid of the logo. That will give you more real estate on your thumbnail. So if anybody has more tips on thumbnails, then put it in the chat. But and if any of you are not part of my Facebook group where you can share your thumbnails, ask questions, etc., let me just grab that URL so you can interact with other like-minded creators, get feedback, ask questions, get YouTube news, etc. So yes, I think when it comes to YouTube thumbnails, a lot of the big channels or a lot of channels that have, or I could say a lot of the top channels in the YouTube space, when they recently changed, they changed some of the thumbnails and saw a huge amount of growth. So I would say experiment with changing your thumbnails. You might try different titles. Of course, the main thing is you want to create videos that your audience wants to watch. So even if you create a great thumbnail, great title, but it's not targeted to your audience, then they may have no interest in watching the content. So so you might like the content and you might want to create content what you like to do, but you continually have to ask yourself, excuse me, what does my audience want to watch? And then I think the click-through rate, the watch time, the audience retention are like some of the biggest factors to look at to improve your subscribers, your views to your videos and your channel. So it starts off with the thumbnails. That's why I think the click-through rate is a great place to start. And if you can get that initial view velocity to your videos, then YouTube is going to surface your video to more people. That means free promotion from YouTube. And if you get your video in the suggested videos, then that means you'll be promoted on other people's channels that are not your subscribers. And that's a great thing. But otherwise, getting in YouTube search, and if your thumbnail shows up in YouTube search, it'll show up in the subscription feed of your subscribers, in the home screen of your subscribers, and down the road, your thumbnail may appear in the carousel at the top of Google search. And so, just keep in mind that YouTube is a long game. And so videos that you've created several weeks, several months, several years ago still have the potential to take off. And so what your one-time investment into the thumbnail, into the video, can really pay off, years down the road. So I want to thank everybody for attending today's live stream. If you're watching a replay and you still have questions, pop them in the comments and I'll be sure to answer them. Then if you have any suggestions for future live streams, future videos, put that in the comments as well. This weekend it's going to be in Washington, D.C. They said like 110 degrees, so I'll probably do a lot of swimming this weekend instead of try to deal with the heat that way. But I hope you have a great day, great weekend, and we'll see you next time. Take care.